We'll call the order the Board of Commissioners meeting for Douglas County, Nebraska for Tuesday, February 11th, 2025. Please note that a copy of the Open Meetings Act is located on the north wall of the Legislative Chamber alongside an automatic external defibrillator. Please stand for the pledge. We'll start with the Douglas County Board of Equalization. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Borgeson? Commissioner Kavanaugh? Commissioner Fahey is absent at the moment. Commissioner Friend? Here. Commissioner Morgan? Here. Commissioner Rogers? Mr. Chair.
Here. First items of business are A and B. A being the approval of the minutes of the Board of Equalization meeting held Tuesday, February 4th, 2025, and B being a call for a meeting and set Tuesday, February 25th, 2025 as date for hearing on certified assessment corrections reflecting the addition of omitted property to the tax rolls or increased value on property. Do I have a motion and a second? Second. Motion by Rogers, second by Morgan. Please vote.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. Next, we have our resolutions under equalization, resolution C through E. Do I have a motion and a second to approve in block? So moved. Motion by Morgan, second by Rogers to approve C through E. Was there anybody here that wanted to speak on resolution C through E for equalization? If not, we'll vote.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. We do have one protest today. Item F, a protest of special valuation, greenbelt disqualification for the following parcels listed on the final agenda. We'll start with Mr. Goodwillie.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mike Goodwillie, Douglas County Assessor Register of Deeds Office. There are 3 parcels here. Could I get a little assistance here? There we go. Okay. maybe zoom in a little bit. No, out. I'm sorry. Not that left, your other left. Keep going. There you go. Okay. These three parcels had been in special valuation, and I know you've heard enough about it over the years to kind of have this vague recollection of what special valuation is. It is a valuation preference that is provided to land only that is primarily used for agricultural purposes. And agricultural purposes are defined as the commercial production of plant or animal products. So we had a staffer who was out in that part of the county, these parcels border Skyline Drive, and he was out in that part of the county and he noticed these parcels having, well, they were getting bulldozed. The tree line, not so much, but from just almost to the street back to just nearly the trees, the property was getting bulldozed. There was a barn that had gotten, or a house that had gotten taken down. What experience has told us over the years is when the bulldozers roll in, that's usually the end of the agricultural activity. So what happens with special valuation when a property's use changes is we send out a disqualification letters. By state law, if the property changes use and becomes disqualified in 1 year, it gets to keep its value for tax purposes for that year, but then the very next year it gets a more market-based value. The difference between ag land value and market value for the same land in Douglas County is quite considerable. In any event, our appraiser sent out a disqualification letter on these three properties in late '24, meaning in '25 the value would have a more market-based value. To show you what our appraiser was seeing, is these properties kind of looked like that, if you can see it. It looks like quite a bit of soil had been taken off. I think this is some sort of a septic or sewer item there. Let me show you another one. Here's a different view of the same parcel. And like I say, our experience has always been in the past that the minute the bulldozers, when the bulldozers roll in, that's sort of the end of any meaningful agricultural activity. Mr. Anderson has filed a protest of our disqualification, and I'm sure he would like to speak. I would just mention a couple of things. First, in terms of market value for 2025, we think there probably needs to be some further work done on this. And I would encourage him to reach out to our appraiser. The very treed portions are also very steep and probably not buildable. So it would probably need some sort of a land adjustment to accurately capture that. And then with respect to, I know Mr. Anderson has said in his protest that the front parcel, if you will, this one, oops, are we not? Oh, okay. This front parcel may end up getting planted again later this year. If that's the case, I would encourage him to file a special valuation application for 2025. The deadline for doing so is the 30th of June. So if he were to do that, I would make that suggestion. With that, I'll take any questions, or I suppose if Mr. Anderson would like to speak, now is his opportunity.
Ray Anderson, I'm the owner of the property out there. I'm here mainly to answer any questions you might have on it. I've been there 45 years. I've always planted for corn or beans, whatever, and the family that does the farming has been doing it for 20 years. I wasn't planning on doing anything, but I went ahead and decided to build my house, redo my house. And when we did that, we bulldozed the house. We took maybe 4 or 5 inches of soil and moved it to the site where the house is going to be. That's where you see a lot of bulldozers. There's one part sticking out of there. To build my house, the city made me put sewer and water in, which would accommodate future development in that first spot. We would like to do that down the road here, but at this particular time, I think it's not feasible. I've got Lanahaw on one side of me, he's got 90 lots. He's got 10 or 12 lots sold there. Got another developer in the north of me, he's got 12 lots. He's got 4 lots sold, 2 of which are their own developers, which they've building houses out there. If you've been by there, you've seen them. Anyway, well, I'm just asking that front part there's, we're going to plant beans, and the family has planned on doing that this spring. I don't have anything else to really say. Any questions from you guys?
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Thank you, Mr. Goodwillie. We'll go into discussion, starting with Commissioner Kavanaugh.
Thank you. Mr. Goodwillie, I'm looking at this map, and it looks like all in, there's like 25 acres and change involved in this.
Oh, I think that's right, when you total up all the acreage of those 3 parcels, yes.
So the difference between 25 acres at the Greenbelt rate and 25 acres at, what would this be, residential? I don't know.
It's considerable. The Greenbelt, there are a couple of different values for the Greenbelt land.
Is the whole 25 acres currently Greenbelt?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, with the exception of the land that was under the barn and under the house. Land associated with buildings doesn't qualify for Greenbelt.
So that gets regular.
So that gets a house site, home site kind of value.
Gotcha. So what's the dollar amounts we're talking?
I don't have a total, but in the memo I provided to you all, the value for one of the parcels last year was $33,160. The land value, well, in other words, $13,990, and the land value for the third was $102,000, although $92,000 represented farm and home site value. The market value is, I thought I had that, I apologize. I think the going rate for, and I apologize, I don't usually miss that.
These values are for ag purpose values, is that
Yes.
correct? Okay.
Yes. So I think we had them at, I think the ballpark rate out there for developmental ground is like 28,000 an acre, or thereabouts.
If it was not ag.
If it's not ag, yes.
Okay. So much of this, it looks like, maybe half of it, looks like trees, right?
Mhm.
Trees qualify for ag?
They can if you're taking timber off of them. I don't think that's what Mr. Anderson was doing. But we were treating it more or less as, for lack of a better term, wasteland. Meaning it's land that you're really not farming, but it would be hard to do a lot of ag with it, but it does adjoin and is in common ownership with land that is being farmed. So for example, you have those 3 parcels. The parcel in front toward the street, I think had beans on them, and the trees adjoin, so they were given a relatively low agricultural value to reflect that.
So it looks like of the 25 acres we're talking, maybe 10 of it was in beans. Rest of it is the house and the trees.
Yeah, that's fair. Ballpark, yeah.
Mr. Anderson, you've been living here for 40 years, you said?
45 years, yeah.
45 years. Are you a farmer?
No, no. I have Anderson's Convenient Food Marts in Omaha here.
I see. Do you lease this farmland to somebody who farms it?
Yes, Ostransky, and it's $1 a year. And that's, my benefit is I don't have to cut the weeds. I don't have to look at the weeds and so forth. He keeps it trimmed, or whatever he plants, does a good job doing it.
Right, but by leasing it for $1 a year, the 10 acres, you've been getting green belt on 25 acres. Is that right?
Well, okay, the back part's wasteland. The state always told me I could never build there. So that's for the animals. In fact, we got deer, foxes.
My
and so
light's
forth.
on, but I'll come back.
Anyway,
I appreciate it. But you get green belt on the whole thing right now,
you know,
except for the house.
except for the house, and we pay the regular rate on that.
Gotcha. Okay.
But I'm looking at the front part, and we're gonna do beans again. Eventually, it'll get developed, but right at this point, it's not feasible. And considering I got Lanahaw next to me doing 90 lots, he's only got 10 sold or so, 12. Guy next to me's got 12, he's only got 4 sold, 2 of them which is his own. And
That's time.
it's just. we've
I
already
appreciate
put
it, but we got time
you got
limits
the-
here.
you
I'll
got
come
the
back.
point.
I'll come back.
Thank you. Really briefly on my end. So the Greenbelt exemption requires there to be current agricultural operations happening.
Primarily
correct?
used for agricultural purposes, yes.
Okay. And is there current agricultural operations going on at the moment, Mr.
Well,
Anderson?
will be. He just finished his, we had beans last year, he's doing beans again this year. Just as soon as he can plant them in, he'll do it.
So the application that Mr. Anderson filled out was for the exemption for year 2025 or for what year specifically?
Well, let me stop you for a minute. Some years back, Mr. Anderson would have filled out a special valuation application to get this valuation preference. There's no annual application. You stay in it until the use typically disqualifies you. So then what happens is, if we think the use has changed, we send the property owner a disqualification letter. They keep the value for that year. So for example, in '24, these parcels had a special valuation. We sent them a disqualification letter in December. For tax purposes, they keep that value, and then the value would go to a more market-based value in 2025. In the olden days, if use changed, there was something called recapture tax that grabbed the difference between the special value and the market value for that year and several current. That went away a number of years ago, and so now the disqualification is prospectively. So if you get a disqualification letter in year 1, then you get a market value in year 2. So what we're talking about, Commissioner Garcia, is what value would look like in 2025.
Okay, got it. And so there's not like an annual application to keep it going unless you're disqualified for some reason.
Right.
So in theory, you're supposed to continuously have agricultural operations happening,
Yes.
right? And if there's not, hence the disqualification.
Right.
Got it. Okay. And so if he applies by the June 30th deadline that you mentioned, he would regain the exemption, but for next year, 2026?
No.
Or for this
No.
year?
No, if they actually plant something and file a green belt application, we would go out and review it, sort of a trust yet verify thing, make sure there's something actually growing, and then we would come back and change the value to a more ag-based value for 2025.
And that changed value would then be implemented.
In 25.
In
Billed
25, okay.
in December 25, payable in 26.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. We'll go to Commissioner Borgeson.
Thank you. I think what we've heard, though, is that the property hasn't changed its use and it will continue to be farmed in. So with that, I think that we just continue with the greenbelt valuation on the properties.
Thank you.
That's a motion.
Second.
Motion by Borgeson, second by Friend to continue the exemption for the addresses, all three addresses stated? Yep. So there's a motion and second on the table. Discussion on that. Commissioner Kavanaugh?
Yeah, thank you.
I have a few questions. I'd just like to get some clarification. Mr. Anderson, Mr. Goodwillie, if you could for a second.
Oh, certainly.
I still have a couple questions.
Mhm.
So the property currently is valued at, it looks like, I don't know, 145,000 all in.
All in, yeah, that sounds about right.
Right.
Maybe a little bit more than that, because there were improvements on it. That would have, since they're gone, they would come off.
Okay. And the valuation would go up, I think you said, is it 28,000 per acre
I
ballpark?
think that's what we had on it as market value, yeah.
Okay.
So if special valuation remains, the land values would be very similar with what we've described in the memo.
Right. But at that, the value of the property would go from that 145, 150 to, is it 700,000, something?
Yeah, I haven't done the math.
Okay, I'm
But-
just
but-
saying,
But Commissioner, yes, it would bump significantly, and that's not atypical at all of the difference between special valuation and market value. Along the development corridors in Douglas County, you can see land sell for 80, 90, 100,000 an acre, where for dry land farming under Greenbelt is 5,400 an acre. So it's
Sure.
quite different.
so, Mr. Anderson, this last ag year,
Right,
2024, was this planted in beans or something?
beans, yeah.
Okay,
Every year, there's been something every year.
okay, so why are the bulldozers on it, did you say?
Okay, I'm building, I'm replacing my house. I've been there 40 years, 45 years. Okay,
That's the house back by the trees that we see.
trees right there.
Yeah.
We raised the ground up 4 feet or something like that.
Yeah,
So I took my dirt
yeah,
up that front hill
yeah,
and spread it there. That's what they see there. Now, that pipe sticking out of the ground is part of the new sewer system that they put in there. The land wasn't that high. That's sticking up.
so where's your new house gonna be?
Right where the old one is,
I see.
yeah.
And have you torn down the old one?
It just got tore down now.
Okay, but come spring, the guy you're leasing to is gonna plant this in something.
Plant, not where the house is, but where,
But where the ag field is.
it's 7.9 acres or something like that.
Well,
And-
one of them is, and then you got a little chunk of the other one, the one that runs down to the river.
That's wasteland and,
Right, but you got one that's all ag, it looks like 7.6, and then you got this partial, which is all in 7.9, but it'd only be a couple, 3 acres, it looks like, maybe of the ag land. You got about 10 acres ag land.
there'd probably another home site next to me eventually.
Okay. And it looks like there's some pretty good development going on just to the east of you, is that right? Houses going up?
To the south of me.
Oh, that's south, okay,
That's Lana has 90 lots he put in on that spot.
okay. Do you anticipate constructing on this property at some point in the future?
On mine?
Yeah.
Oh, down the road here.
Okay,
It's not feasible today, or, maybe next year, maybe not.
I got you. So, Mr. Goodwillie, if nothing changes, he planted a crop last year, he planted a crop this year, would that change our position?
No, what I've been saying is, right now, it doesn't look like it's getting an ag use. If they plant and reapply for special valuation, then in all likelihood, if our guy drives out there and there's beans
Sure.
planted, we'll grant it.
Okay, well, I guess we take Mr. Anderson at his word, he's gonna plant it this spring, or his guy is gonna plant it this spring.
You will make up the tax difference on my new house. I guarantee you that.
That's time.
Well, that's good to know. All right,
The way things are jumping up, prices of lumber, everything, it's unreal.
yeah,
When I
I've been
decided to do
down
that, I almost said, hey, forget it. I'm not gonna live that long.
No, I hear you. Thanks for coming down.
Okay, thank you.
There's a motion and second on the table. Other discussion? Yes. Is it okay if it includes adjournment, board? Yep, okay. Very good. All right, let's go ahead and vote.
Motion passes 6-0.
That concludes Board of Equalization. We will now go into Board of Corrections. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Borgeson? Commissioner Kavanaugh? Commissioner Fahey is absent. Commissioner Friend? Commissioner Morgan?
Yes.
Commissioner Rogers? Mr. Chair.
Here. First item of business is item 1, approval of the minutes of the Board of Corrections meeting held Tuesday, January 14th, 2025. Do I have a motion and a second? Second. Motion by Rogers, second by Morgan. Please vote.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. Next, we have a report from Director of Corrections, Director Myers.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Michael Myers, Director of Corrections for Douglas County. You have my report for the month of January. Turning to enclosure number 1, Administrative Services and Personnel. After the 7th month of the fiscal year, we are $435,706 under budget. There were $237,007 spent on overtime costs. That is a slight increase from the previous month. We did have an increase in sick and other leave time that appears to be responsible for the increase. Our records division processed just shy of $1 million of bond payments. 6 officers below the rank of sergeant and 1 sergeant left employment in January. 4 officers were promoted from CO1 to CO2. As of January 31st, we were 103% staffed among all correctional officer ranks. That does include a class of 19 cadets in our academy, pardon me, which began on January 13th. And they are expected to graduate on February 22nd and will begin 3 weeks of field training after that. Turning to enclosure number 2, Community Corrections and Reentry Services. The Sanction Center and Transitional Discharge Center placed a total of 11 individuals in community corrections, saving 59 bed days in the jail. Work release admitted 31 individuals. House arrest admitted 80 individuals. That is the highest total in well over a year. The Reentry Assistance Program admitted 19 individuals. Turning to reentry services in our therapeutic communities, there were 55 individuals admitted to therapeutic community housing units. There are currently 110 individuals on the GED wait list, and there are 56 active students. 3 individuals achieved a GED. 11 individuals were referred to our Intensive Outpatient Treatment Program, or IOP, and 34 individuals received substance use disorder evaluations. There were 300 individuals placed on pretrial release. There were 1,294 individuals supervised on pretrial release over the course of the month. 536 individuals participated in the 24/7 sobriety program. 179 of them were supervised via GPS monitors. That saved, theoretically, 3,960 jail bed days, which translates into a detention savings of $673,200. Pretrial services staff are working with a new vendor on pretrial release software. We hope to have that software launched within the next few months. And that software will hopefully provide us much more detailed outcome measures than what we've been able to provide you thus far in terms of tracking violations, court appearances, etc. Enclosure number 3, compliance. Regular reporting of all compliance-related data continues. The next audit we will participate in will be conducted by the National Commission on Correctional Health Care, which will occur sometime during the second half of this year. Enclosure number 4, population. There were 1,420 admissions, and there were 1,365 releases. Our high count was 1,039. Our low count was 991. Our average daily population was 1,013. That is an increase of 69. You may recall from last month I did report that we had an historically, probably record-setting in a modern era low month, so we did bounce up a bit from that. The average length of stay for inmates who were released in January, the overall average length of stay was 25 days. 49% of inmates stayed longer than 72 hours. Their average length of stay was 49 days. 51% of inmates were released within 72 hours of being booked, and their average length of stay was 1.4 days. There were 98 custodial sanctioned bed days. The U.S. Marshal population increased. The felony pretrial population was 719. The average daily felony pretrial was 719. That is an increase. The average daily misdemeanor pretrial population was 132. That is also an increase. Probation violations remain stable. 20% of our population were between the ages of 18 and 24. 65% of our population were minorities. 16% of our population were female. That is an increase. 18% of our population were homeless or nearly homeless, and that was also a slight increase. Turning to enclosure number 5, medical and mental health. There are 1,095 intake screenings, and there were 405 physical and health assessments completed. There were 20 emergent medical care transports. 4 of those were by 911. There were 9 hospital admissions that resulted in 30 total days of hospitalization. There were 30 off-site medical specialty appointments. There were 144 initial psychiatric assessments completed. There were 352 initial mental health assessments completed. 121 individuals were placed on suicide precautions, and 162 individuals were placed on drug and alcohol detox protocols. There were 4 Board of Mental Health referrals that were approved. We have 13 on the regional center wait list, and there are currently 14 of our individuals at the Lincoln Regional Center. And Commissioners, if we could deviate for just a moment, and if you could turn under your tab number 5 to page 42. I included some additional mental health data from the Stepping Up initiative that we are a part of, along with many other local agencies. We get this data quarterly, and I took some excerpts of data that is most applicable to the jail. You can see on page 42, there's actually 2 page numbers on this, but because I took it from another booklet, but it's page 42. The first is one of the goals is to reduce the number of people booked into jail with a serious mental illness. And you can see over the course of time, we haven't made a ton of progress on that, on the bookings coming in. We continue to run, into the mid to high 20%, and we finished the year with December having 30.2% of the individuals booked into jail having a serious mental illness. Turning to the next page, a related but different statistic is to reduce the number of people who are in the jail. So this doesn't count bookings. This is more of an average daily population. And again, the line is fairly flat. It runs in the lower to lower 30%. We finished the year with 33.2% of individuals booked into the jail, or not booked, but residing in the jail with a serious mental illness. We still run around 50% of the overall population having a mental illness, but around 33% now have a serious mental illness. The following page, this does have some good news. Around the country, it's been reported that the average length of stay for individuals with a mental illness is up to 4 times longer than individuals who don't have a serious mental illness. We are doing much better than that in Douglas County, and our trend has been improving as well. You can see in December, for instance, the individuals without a serious mental illness, their average length of stay was approximately 23 days. And individuals with a serious mental illness, their average length of stay was approximately 29 days. So we are overperforming our peers in other areas and have made progress. As you can see from earlier months in that graph, the difference between an individual with a serious mental illness and those without serious mental illness in terms of length of stay in some months was basically double or more. And I do want to give some credit to the Lincoln Regional Center. You can see on the next page, page 45, that in 2023, the average wait to get into the Lincoln Regional Center was 154 days. And in 2024, that was reduced to 69 days. That, I think, is in large part due to an increase in their bed capacity. Now that we've filled those beds, I do kind of anticipate that that number will go up somewhat, probably moderate somewhere in between those two levels for 2025. But we will take the good news on the mental health front wherever we can get it. Okay, turning back to my summary. To enclosure number 6, security operations in our honor guard. The crisis negotiation team, or CNT, they conducted training exercises that based upon some recent real life scenarios with the intent of improving rapport building and with individuals who are experiencing a crisis. Our crisis negotiation team was deployed 11 times in January. Issues addressed included excuse me, working with several mentally ill individuals who had been refusing basic hygienic care to get them to take showers, assisting an individual who did not want to be released from custody, negotiating with an individual who was refusing to be transferred to another facility, working with an individual who was refusing to attend court, and working with an individual who was refusing to return medication that they had previously refused to take. Several of these deployments were in conjunction with our CERT team. And our CERT team, Correctional Emergency Response Team, they also conducted training in use of distraction and de-escalation devices. CERT team was also deployed 11 times in January. Many of these were in conjunction with CNT. The separate deployments included 3 high-risk medical transports. There were 14 area searches conducted. Minor contraband included items modified for tattooing and nuisance items such as extra linens. Significant contraband included Cash App information. We did discover a small amount of marijuana. We received intelligence that a shank, which is a weapon an item being modified into a weapon, was present in a housing unit. However, a thorough search of that unit did not yield any weapons. The Honor Guard was not deployed during December. They did hold a fundraiser and a staff morale building event on January 31st. And the Honor Guard also has begun meeting to prepare for Corrections Week facilities, which are just around the corner, the first week of May. Enclosure number 7, staff development, wellness, and retention. There were 17 individuals interviewed for correctional officer positions. We received 130 applications. A class of 19 cadets began academy training on January 13th. Interviews have started in order to begin building our April academy class. Members of our staff have implemented their own Alcoholics Anonymous meetings as a supportive activity for those who suffer addiction. Our peer support team added new members who will be trained in February. 14 staff members utilized the Wellness and Retention Office, and 2 staff members were referred to external and resources for additional support. And other noteworthy items, progress continues on the construction of our mental health addition to the Department of Corrections. Much of the work to this point has been underground, including utility connections, deep foundations consisting of 148 80-foot deep concrete pilings. Some surface work for construction of stair and elevator towers has begun. The above-ground construction is scheduled to begin prior to March 1st, so it'll be exciting to see it actually start to take shape soon. Access to the garage for inmate booking and transportation has been seamless, despite having to traverse the construction zone to get to that garage. With that, I'm ready for your questions.
Thank you, Director Myers. We'll go to discussion, starting with Commissioner Kavanaugh.
Thanks for this. Just a couple of informational questions. On page 2, where you have revenue, to take a line item, our two biggest are jail housing for the city, the annually budgeted at $4.5 million, and jail housing for U.S. Marshals, annually budgeted at $4.8 million, with a monthly budget of $375,000 on the city, $407,000 on the Marshals. And then monthly received are $241,000 on the city and $138,000 on the Marshals. So these budgeted items are estimates, is that correct?
Yeah, they're based upon what we've seen in previous years.
Historically. And so these would be based on the populations from the city or the U.S. Marshals that we house.
That's correct.
So according to this, we're down on both of those for this year?
Yeah, our overall population is down. The Marshal Service is down across the country, and we are down locally, as Sarpy County now has a Marshal contract with their new jail, so some of their inmates are going there.
Gotcha.
Which is also cut
On
into
page
ours.
3, and this kind of ties into, again, we are at 104% of, or 102% of authorized staff, 104% of authorized staff for correction officer 1s, which is good. But on page 2, we have is it page 2? No, page 3. We have overtime, which is slightly up. And my impression is the more staff we have, the less overtime. And that's
correct.
kind of reflected here. It's been generally down. But there's a little blip in the last, I guess, January 2025 number, when we're pretty well staffed. Is there some reason for that? It's not really significant.
If you turn to the next page, I think that will yield the explanation. You can see we had an increase in vacation use, an increase in comp leave used, and an increase in sick time used.
Okay.
So
Cold and flu season, basically, yeah.
That's basically it.
The information that you gave us on mental health on page 42 and on the average length of stay indicates that they're lower than the non-mental health population by about 6 days, 23 days for people with serious mental health.
No, other way around. The seriously mentally ill in December were staying for 29 days. The
With
individuals.
mental health, yes, and the other is 23.
Correct.
What's the general population average length of stay?
25.
It's what?
In December, excuse me, in December it was 25 days.
25
for
days.
overall.
Okay. The
January.
minority majority kind of remains where we've had it at 65% minorities, 35% Caucasian or white. That changes a few points, it seems, every month, one way or the other.
It stays right around that 2/3
Okay.
mark. It's been pretty stubborn along
And
that line.
the page 42 information that you give us on the mental health status is good. Do we have a similar one on people presenting with drug and alcohol problems?
I don't.
If we don't, it might be good to have it. It seems to me that that portion of the population would be larger than the mental health portion of the population. I'll come back.
That's time. Thank you. We'll go to Commissioner Morgan.
Mike, thank you and your team for what you do and the respect you always show to, the people that are incarcerated. The homeless situation's close to 20%, a couple hundred individuals. Is it because they've committed some walk away from a restaurant or something, or is it just, are they picked up at 77th and Cass or by the Papio, or what is it usually?
So, there are several different reasons. One of the more significant ones, and we actually track this on page 31. It's kind of a summary of our population, and one of the things that we take note of is people who are booked into the jail for trespassing, because that's kind of the strongest indicator. These are folks that probably didn't leave when asked, and so law enforcement wasn't left with a lot of choices. And we had 156 people arrested that were booked in for trespassing. 92 of those were people who were booked in more than once. So that I think is the biggest driver when you're looking at our homeless population.
And if we turn the clock back, and I'm sorry, I don't recall, but was our homeless situation 3 years ago running close to the 20%? I thought it was a lot less.
It's kind of been in that range of maybe 17 to 22%. I mean, it's been pretty steady over the course of time.
Okay. All right, thank you again very much.
Absolutely.
We'll go to Commissioner Friend.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Mike, seems like lately I've been pointing this out. I've been on the board, I don't know why, I've been on the board for about 4 years. And Commissioner Kavanaugh, my friend, does it's ritualistic, and he does a pretty good job. He does a good job at what he tries to focus on. But I always think it's interesting when we do it in the corrections mode. And here's what I mean. When we talk about enclosure 4 and we talk about populations, I want everybody to be very clear about what your authority is. I mean, what your job is. And let me give you an example of what I mean by that. The Nebraska State Patrol, the Douglas County Sheriff's Office, the Omaha Police Department, other law enforcement entities within the Douglas County jurisdiction, the Douglas County Attorney's Office, the DC Public Defender's Office, the Douglas County Public Defender's Office. That funnel is where you're actually putting your population numbers, or you're getting your population numbers from. Let me give you an example of what I mean finally. And I've said this before, I said this a couple of years ago. 50.4% of the population of Douglas County is female. Just a little over 50% of Douglas County is female. 16% of our population at Douglas County lockup is female. That's inordinate. That doesn't make any sense to me. And I'm not even going to ask you why that is, because you don't have any control over that. If we want to have the State Patrol, if we want to have the Sheriff's Office, if we want to have Omaha Police, if we want to have the Attorney's Office and the Public Defender come up here and speak to that issue, then I think that we're going to do some broken field running. I think we're actually going to be able to come up with some answers. Culturally, criminal statistics, the whole bit. All these numbers always concern me. The question is, why are they like that? And do you ever have an answer for us? That's rhetorical. Mike, I appreciate the information you provide, and I'm not frustrated. I just want clarity when we go into these meetings about what your responsibility is and what you're actually reporting for. So, Mr. Chair, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Commissioner Kavanaugh.
Thanks, and thanks for that, Mike. I usually want you to have that context on the record, so I appreciate you bringing that up. We have no control who comes to our correction center.
We do not.
No. So the disparity in any demographic, whether it's gender or race or anything else, is beyond our control.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Here's another demographic that we have, and what I'm looking for is something that we can do with this. I was interested in the page 42 information that you give us on inmates presenting with mental health and their average length of stay. On page 40, we have number of individuals placed on drug and alcohol withdrawal protocols, which would be people with bad drug and alcohol problems. And there's a graph there that shows that about 150 or a little more than 10% of our overall population. And I'm just looking for, maybe average length of stay of those folks, to break out the people in our population with drug and alcohol problems is a big factor, both in recidivism, but in mental health. There's a significant overlap between people who present with drug and alcohol problems and people who present with mental health problems.
Absolutely.
There's a significant overlap between people who have drug and alcohol problems and people who are homeless. That might be almost 100%, but it's way high. If we could drill down on that a little bit, I know that we're in the process of building this wing for people with mental health problems, and see what the average length of stay is with somebody who's there for a DUI, and that's usually not your first DUI.
Correct.
If you're doing jail time for a DUI, you've had DUIs before. People that are there for possession of a controlled substance, and usually you're not there for having an ounce of marijuana. That's an infraction. You're there for more than an ounce of marijuana or a different controlled substance. Those people have drug and alcohol problems, and I'd be interested, what's their average length of stay? And then what programs do we have? I note that we are, and it's good that we are, providing weekly AA meetings for our staff. And I think historically we've provided regular AA meetings for our inmates. I don't know if that's in this report, but I know we do.
There are, in enclosure number 2, I couldn't point to the page to you right now because there's a lot of data in enclosure number 2. But there are a variety of 12-step meetings that go on. They go on pretty much daily for different populations.
That's great. If we could have that as part of the report, because I think, a larger portion of our population probably presents with drug and alcohol problems, maybe with a mental health problem on top of that, than probably any other single thing we can point to. And if we can start dealing with that on an average length of stay of 35 days, we can make a little bit of a dent in that. Average length of stay at a inpatient drug and alcohol program, even the high-end ones, is 30 days. We have people with mental health issues that have an average length of stay of 29 days. They have a mental health issue when we come out. You're not going to get 29 days and boom, your mental health issue goes away. And we can't get them to the regional center because the waiting list is 69 days. So if you come in with a mental health problem in Douglas County Correction Center, and it's so bad that you qualify for the regional center, mostly you're going to be discharged before you get a referral to the regional center, unless you get Board of Mental Health or something.
No, they will stay with us until they go.
I'm sorry?
They will stay in our custody until they go to the regional center.
Okay.
That's time.
And how big of a population is that?
That's time.
Oh, sorry.
Do you want a third 2-minute round? Or are you good?
I just was wondering, that regional center population, what number of?
We currently, I believe, we have 14 people on the wait
14
list.
out of 1,000. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on the director's report?
Morning, Mike. Thank you, Mr. Mars. Larry Storr, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha, 68132. I'm glad to see so many people from the fine department we operate here in Douglas County. I congratulate them on their work. However, I want to caution them some. And excuse me, I did spend a lot of time yesterday on records, your presentation, mental illness, and homelessness. big topics coming up, but I'd like to caution most of your workers that because of privacy laws in this state, in this county, a lot of the help that you hope you're going to be able to give your people will not arrive because people don't want to talk. People don't want to listen. Experts, such as mental health experts and therapists, don't necessarily want to share information. Even if the law says for lawful purposes, they can. I have a grandson that has experienced this stuff. And they don't want to listen to grandparents, but you talk about families. Don't talk about families if grandparents aren't considered part of the family and therefore allowed to be involved, allowed to give input. The other thing is my grandson just turned 25, so unfortunately he missed the point again, simply because the experts say, well, the brain is totally mature at age 25. And it doesn't matter after you're 25. So the young adult thing gets cut off. They get young adult court until age 25? Excuse me. What expert came up with that? So you don't necessarily want to listen to all the experts, even if they do tell you things. They might not ask you anything either, but your people might know the inmates better than they do, because it might be the first time they ever met them. Well, now is that going to help you with your mental illness program? And then your homeless program? Oh my God, people are breaking into all these houses along Northwest Radial Highway and up the hill towards 45th Street because they don't have a home. They don't have a affordable home. There aren't enough 501Cs around Omaha to provide housing for it. So they're breaking into all these real old, nice apartment buildings that could be affordable. But are you people doing anything about that? No. From Cummings Street to Hamilton Street and up to 45th Street to the east, go take a look, drive through it. Look at how many windows are boarded. Even a small, nice little affordable home that's for sale, they broke into that. But is anybody doing anything about the homeless people there? No. I guess your city is waiting for it to be developed. Maybe that's what's going on there. You want to say, maybe I'm touched. Well, I might be, but I'm not necessarily mentally ill. And some therapists might say, oh, well, he doesn't meet the guidelines. He flies his flag upside down, but I'm not going to send my mental illness right along just because of that. And a neighbor reported that he's strange. That's not necessarily mental illness.
20 seconds.
Do your experts get into that with the inmates? Or is it a slam dam, thank you, ma'am interview, and that's it? And they don't qualify because they don't know the information. My grandson missed it.
Thank you.
They don't
We'll go
spend the
to
money.
Commissioner Morgan.
I just want to say one thing, and I think Sheriff Hansen is here. I know that I've had some people around the 77th and Cass that have called about the issue. They're on Cass Street, right by the Papio and the sports place there in the garage and some other things. And I know that he's worked, and he can correct me, but I know that in the past year and a half, has worked hard to try to be helpful with the police and do what he can to listen to the citizens and do something about that. So it isn't like the county isn't doing anything. We are, and he is. And I thank him for that. So we do follow up when we hear from the citizens about that situation of the businesses in the area. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on the director's report for corrections? If not, thank you, Director Myers. I'll take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Motion by Morgan, second by Rogers to adjourn Board of Corrections. Roll call.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. We'll go into Board of Commissioners. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Borgeson. Commissioner Kavanaugh. Commissioner Fahey is absent. Commissioner Friend. Commissioner Morgan. Commissioner Rogers. Mr. Chair.
Here. First items of business are items 1A and B. A being the approval of the minutes of the Board of Commissioners meeting held Tuesday, February 4th, 2025, and B being the approval of claims submitted for payment process through Tuesday, February 18th, 2025. Do I have a motion and a second? Second. Motion by Rogers, second by Morgan. Please vote.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. Next, we have our consent agenda, items 2A through F. Do I have a motion and a second for discussion? Second by Morgan, or excuse me, motion by Morgan, second by Rogers. Any comments or questions on the consent agenda? If not, we'll vote.
Teresa York, excuse me, Teresa York County Attorney's Office. Dan, did you have an addition to B3? No, no worries.
We're going to have to I'm sorry, Commissioners. Chair Garcia, maybe I'll just ask for your affirmative vote after I make this.
That's fine.
I got to pull up the language that Teresa sent me. This is regarding item 2B3.
MUD.
Correct. Okay, so we want to add to this resolution, be it resolved by this board, or be it resolved this board authorizes the expenditure of $154,400 to Metropolitan Utilities District to relocate 1,040 feet of 6-inch steel gas main, and the chair is authorized to sign the necessary documents. So I believe the last part of and the chair is authorized to sign the necessary documents may have been excluded from the resolution that was submitted. So we just wanted to add that in and include that for the record.
Add that addition if the board's okay with it, and we'll go back into the vote.
Tell you what, I paused the vote after 5 of the commissioners that voted. You just want to vote yes, and I'll make sure the record reflects that you voted yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to new business, section 4, resolution under item A, resolution appointing Michael Goodwillie to the position of Douglas County Assessor Register of Deeds to complete the unexpired term of the late Walt Peffer, sponsored by all Board of Commissioners. So, motion to approve by Borgeson, second by Morgan. And after we vote, we can maybe go into the ceremony and maybe allow for a few words as well, and we'll go from there. So let's get the vote in.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. If y'all want to set up for the swearing-in ceremony, well, we thank the staff from the Assessor Register of Deeds Office. Many of you are here today. Appreciate all your hard work and working with everyone through this transition. We know that sometimes leadership transitions can be difficult, but with the great leadership we have internally, we envision a very good, smooth transition. So with that, we shall have the judge join us here.
Mr. Goodwillie, would you raise your right hand for me, sir? Sir, do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Nebraska, against all enemies, foreign and domestic?
I do.
Do you also bear true faith and allegiance to the same?
Yes.
And sir, will you take this obligation freely and without mental reservation for any purpose of evasion?
I will.
And sir, will you faithfully and impartially perform the duties of the office of the Douglas County Assessor, Register of Deeds, according to the law and to the best of your ability?
I will.
And sir, do you further swear that you do not advocate, nor are you a member of any political party or organization that advocates the overthrow of the government of the United States or this state by force or by violence?
Yes.
And sir, do you promise that you will not advocate nor become a member of any political party or organization that advocates the overthrow of the government of the United States or of this state by force or violence?
I do.
So help you God.
I do.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you very much. Oops, sure.
Thank you. Again, congratulations to you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Assessor, Register of Deeds.
Thank you. At one point, up here at the podium at one meeting, I think one of you said, well, I've asked you what time it is, and you're telling me how to build a watch, which I thought was a funny line because it was true. So I will try and be brief. First, I would like to thank you, commissioners. This is a tremendous vote of confidence, and I can't even begin to tell you how honored I am by it. But I'm also aware that this isn't just about me. This is about the management and staff at the assessor's office currently, that you are articulating your confidence in the direction that office is going and in the way it's operating. We have some real quality people that I can't thank enough. And of course, this is a continuation of the term of the late Walt Peffer. And I think we take that all very seriously. I think we're very happy with the direction that he put us on, and I see this as kind of his legacy, and I don't anticipate any real significant changes in the manner in which we do business. I would also like to take a minute to thank all the other county officials that I've worked with over the years. There's too many to count, and I look forward to working with them in this new capacity. We really do have some awesome people in all of the offices, and I can't even begin to tell you how much I've enjoyed working with them. And last but not least, I'd like to thank my family, my wife Cheryl, and my daughter Claire. My daughter Lauren is on Zoom from London, where she lives now, and my brother Steve from Los Angeles. And so thank you one and all. I hope I can continue in continue to do the kind of quality work in that office that we've been getting. And thank you once again.
Thank you. And Mr. Goodwillie and Jake, while you're here, maybe we can get a pic with the board.
Sure. Your family's welcome.
All right, and our thanks again to all the staff of the Assessor Register of Deeds for all your quality work. Really appreciate it. We're going to go ahead and move on to item 4B under new business, which is the presentation on the battery safety issue and requesting board support of proposed LB 309, the Safe Battery Collection and Recycling Act. This is an item that will be presented by Director Holm.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kent Holm, Environmental Services Director. What I'm going to present to you this morning is a significant issue, and is becoming more substantial and more impactful, seemingly as every day goes by. So, without further ado, I'm going to let pictures tell the story. Lithium-ion batteries, lithium batteries in particular, are the culprit here. And as you see from these pictures, the top picture is a picture of a trash collection truck where a battery got compromised in there, started on fire, and basically the truck has to dump its load in the middle of the street someplace. Lower left-hand corner, this is a fire that got started in an apartment. You can see it can be pretty significant. And the lower right-hand corner, that's what remains of an e-bike, e-scooter. These are very common types of fires that have been occurring more and more. And here's a short video I want you to look at. This is a dog chewing on a portable, rechargeable battery. And I will reassure you that the dogs here were just fine, and no one got hurt, thankfully. But you can see what's happening here is what's called thermal runaway. And the lithium batteries that are contained in these devices, once they get exposed, once they get crushed or punctured, and they get exposed to air and moisture, they will literally explode, and then it just starts a chain reaction. These burn at extremely high temperatures, some 600 plus degrees, and it is becoming more and more of a safety issue. Here.
Let's make sure it's shared. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay.
Is that where you were? Yeah, okay. Thanks.
Okay, so closer to home, this is a fire that occurred in the Gretna sanitation truck, I believe the first part of November, and basically just had to dump the load out in the street, and then it provides access for the fire department to put it out. You can generally put these out with water. It takes a lot of water. These things, again, burn very hot, and it takes some effort to get them extinguished. First Star Fiber is the company that processes most of the recyclables that are picked up by FCC here with the City of Omaha contract. They've had a number of fires in their facility. Some of them fairly small, easily contained, but there are other fires, and not necessarily here, but across the country, where entire facilities are basically just burned to the ground. This is having a significant impact on their ability, these businesses' ability to get insurance. Their insurance rates are in some cases doubling every year because of these things. So it's a significant issue. Okay. Normally, I don't like to put slides in my presentations that have a lot of words in them, but I put this in mainly because this presentation is going to be archived, and I wanted folks to see this particular information. I know Dan handed out a info sheet. There's a lot of good resources, and we'll make more of those available. But this is why some of this stuff happens, and basically it's these batteries just get compromised, and they're in all sorts of products. So it's not something that's going to go away, but it's only going to be more problematic. So it's interesting when you look at the batteries. Here's 6 different kinds of AA batteries, things that we commonly use in a lot of devices. And they all look pretty much the same. They are all, I mean, the pictures are a little bit, they were cut and pasted on here. So they're maybe appear to be a little bit different in size, but they're all AA batteries. And most people can't tell the difference. And most people don't take the time to kind of figure out, okay, is this lithium, this not, whatever. Because the way you dispose of an alkaline battery, which is on the left, as opposed to a lithium battery on the right, significantly different. The alkaline batteries don't have the same kind of a problematic issue with fires. Larger batteries, and these are batteries that are larger in weight, but also larger in power capacity. So things like lawn tools and things like that, and then the e-bikes and other things that relate to that. We're seeing more and more of those things on the market. So how are we supposed to deal with these? Well, one of the things, and this is extended producer responsibility, you may have heard about this. This is basically a template for how we can start addressing some of these materials. We want to get in front of the safety issue and address that. So this has been shown to be a best practice across the country. And just to kind of go through a little bit of kind of explanation of what this is, you have companies that design and produce a product. Let's say it's a cell phone. They produce and distribute that. Consumers buy it, they use it. At some point, they need to dispose of that, get a new one, et cetera. And so then that goes back into a recycling process. The companies recycle it. They get the materials out of that old product that they can reuse again. A couple of different things about the EPR process is that it really incentivizes the manufacturers to produce a better product, a product that can be more easily recyclable, that produces less waste. They can then get some of those valuable metals like lithium, nickel, those types of things, and reuse those. If you look around the planet, there are places around the earth that are really experiencing some interesting political dynamics because of these types of metals. And if we can recycle some of these materials and keep them here, that's another benefit. One of the other big benefits of extended producer responsibility is the fact that it will move the cost of collection from government and the public sector to the private sector. So, for example, our Under the Sink facility, which right now collects batteries, and we pay Call to Recycle, which is a nationwide nonprofit that deals with battery recycling and reclamation. We pay them to take those batteries. Under an EPR scenario, the Under the Sink operation would get reimbursed by the stewardship organization, and therefore that would be a gain for the taxpayers here, that we wouldn't have to pay for that. particular service. And I can go into a little bit more detail about that if you have questions. This is something that's been gaining momentum across the country, and I would ask you to focus on the yellow states, the states in yellow. These are all states that this year are anticipating, or already have, or will be introducing battery-related legislation. And again, the safety aspect is the driver here. The other things, yes, there's other benefits, but safety is the big issue. Now, until we get to an EPR scenario, what are we doing right now? Call to Recycle, again, is a nationwide nonprofit. They actually have some collection sites here in Nebraska. I don't remember exactly the number of them, but Home Depot, Lowe's, Best Buy, and Staples are all national partners of Call to Recycle. And so Call to Recycle puts collection bins in those retailers' outlets. And so they are actually now subsidizing some of that for the retailers. There are a few other locations, I believe Ace Hardware is one of them, where they're doing it just specifically voluntarily, and they have to front the whole cost. In a extended producer responsibility scenario, then the battery stewardship organization, which could be Called to Recycle, then would pay for that service. The battery stewardship organization gets funded by the battery manufacturers and producers. So that's kind of the way that works. Oops, excuse me. Now, why is Douglas County involved in this? So we are part of the metro area planning agency's regional integrated solid waste management plan. And as part of that plan, there are certain elements that are our focus points. One of them is a sustainable funding scenario. We want to be able to get to a point where the services we're providing on solid waste management are sustainable. And so the extended producer responsibility that's outlined in LB 309 fits that, because it basically, whatever expenses we have then are compensated by the stewardship organization. We're collecting resource value from the batteries. Instead of throwing them in a landfill, throwing them away, and losing that economic benefit and resource value, we're capturing that. It helps us to track waste generation, how much of this waste is being diverted from the landfill, for example. Improving end markets, that's simply tying back to the resource value. And of course, increasing awareness is probably the most important thing that I'm doing today. We have to understand the safety risk involved, because they are getting greater. I did want to pay kind of to conclude the Omaha Recycling Guide, which is kind of a cooperative effort with Keep Omaha Beautiful and Omaha Public Works and the other folks who are working with solid waste. They have a particular link to rechargeable batteries to talk about some of the best practices there for consumers. And finally, I just wanted to say, these batteries are all around us. I'm specifically wearing these today. I got these new a couple of weeks ago, and the first thing I did was to get the instructions out and to look at what the battery stuff was, all the instructions about battery use and management. There are so many devices that we use every day: cell phones, laptops, these things, the earphones she has on, so on, and all the different products we use. A lot of them contain lithium batteries, and there's a lot of folks, and I will put myself in the same boat, that a year or so ago, I was doing some stuff with batteries that was pretty careless. So I've learned a lot, and I would appreciate the board's support in supporting LB 309, because I think it puts us down a road where we can be more sustainable. Yes, we can certainly get the resource value out of those batteries. And most importantly, we're addressing a safety issue. With that, happy to entertain any questions. Also, I know that on the Zoom link, Mark Bulish, who is with the Rechargeable Battery Association, they basically represent the battery producers and manufacturers in the country. And I think he's available if there's some specific questions that you would have on a technical note of batteries. So, thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you. We'll go into discussion, starting with Commissioner Morgan.
Kent and Kim, thank you very much. And what I'd like to suggest, if it's okay, and there's no timing to it, Kim, if possible, working with Ken, maybe you can send that out to us in an email, channels, I think it was Channel 7 News, and maybe the other information that we could pass along to some of our family members and then to citizens that might contact us. And I know in some states, the fire departments, and someday we may hear from them about it, they're not even, if they see an electric car on fire, they pulled off. It burns so hot. And that's really the truth. In certain states, they have told the people, we're not even fighting that fire because they burn so hot they can't do it. And you've probably heard that. Don't hesitate to correct me and say, no, that's not accurate. Because I know I've heard that.
No, I think you are accurate. Some of those burn very hot, very quickly. I will say that the LB 309, just to clarify, is not going to address the EV electric vehicle battery component. I mean, that's to come. There are certain states that are enacting some EV laws right now that will address those. But that's kind of a different animal because it's a larger battery and there's a lot more firepower to it.
Correct.
Bad pun.
And I
probably.
know Arizona is one of the states that has made that a policy decision. So I thank you again for bringing it to us and really appreciate the information. And if it takes a couple emails to us, fine, we get enough emails. But that's really an important issue right now because we're not aware. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll go to Commissioner Borgerson.
Yeah, thank you. Kate, did you say Under the Sink currently collects batteries?
Yes, they will take those batteries.
Under this, would that facility continue to collect those, or would we be creating a different facility?
Well, both. They will continue to collect those batteries. The one thing that will change is that the cost of them collecting and managing them for the stewardship organization, they'll get reimbursed for those costs. So that helps offset, what currently we would have our costs be. There will be an expanded network if this goes through. The battery stewardship organization that's set up, and it might be like Call to Recycle, that nonprofit. They would come in and they would work with folks who wanted to voluntarily be a collection site. I would anticipate that across Nebraska, the existing household hazardous waste facilities like Under the Sink, one in Lincoln, one in Grand Island, et cetera, they would continue to be a drop-off site. They will get reimbursed for those costs. And my understanding is that also a voluntary collection site, let's say it's an Ace Hardware, they would also be reimbursed for the cost of those collections. The cost of the program is ultimately borne by the manufacturers. They recognize that they want consistency across the country as much as possible so that they can be efficient with their operation. And again, as you go back to my EPR diagram, there's a real incentive in that program for them to continually improve their products. And this not only gives them some materials back in terms of the recycled materials, but it also then, hey, how can we do our research and development to be able to improve the product so that it's still doing the things that the consumer needs it to do, but we can recycle it better. We don't create as much waste. We create a safer product and all of those types of things as well. So I know that was a little long-winded, but I'm trying to build context and awareness here as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions on the presentation or for Mr. Holm?
Motion to approve LB 3809.
Was to approve support for LB 309 as requested by Director Holm. Is there a second? Second by Rogers. Any final discussion? We'll vote.
Just before we vote, there isn't a resolution with this item, but I mean, this has come up before previously with LBs, and Ellen Sexer, my office, just simply basically has a sentence that the board moves to support LB, in this case 309, so it would be something like that, but we could send out a draft to Kent ahead of time, make sure it kind of says what he was thinking, but it'll be along those lines, so.
Okay. Sounds
Oh, I'm, okay. I guess we do have a, something for B that maybe just didn't get on the agenda, or agenda on the website, so I apologize, there is a resolution. Okay. Go ahead and vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Commissioners, again, I very much appreciate your support. I think this is a very important safety issue, not only here in Nebraska, but across the country. On a weather-related note, I know that tomorrow is going to be a little challenging potentially. I was intending to go down to Lincoln to testify in person for this. I'm assuming that perhaps our lobbyist is already going to be in Lincoln, and if you would allow him to testify in person for this, I would appreciate that. I would love to be there in person, but I also don't relish driving in a snowstorm. In my younger days, maybe, but not today.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay.
Motion passes. Commissioner Friend abstains. Other commissioners voting yes.
The Commissioner, well, first, Commissioner Friend, did you have something?
I did.
Yeah.
I abstained, and it's certainly, I'm certainly not trying to send a message, or it's not something that I've made a determination on. I know we had a chance to read this bill. It's been out there. It was dropped on, I believe, the 19th. I haven't read it yet. It's 19 pages long. I also, the details are pretty important to me.
Mm-hmm.
Second reason that I abstained is if we're the only state that does this, we've got kind of we've got a commerce issue. And I'm a little bit worried about the manufacturer, a little bit more than a little bit worried about manufacturers making decisions in Nebraska based on the lack of a fingerprint from the federal government. So let me read the bill. I didn't want to say no. I mean, it all seems, I even told Kent before this, it all seems a heck of a lot of common sense is being applied here. So I'm not making a political statement. I love to read legislative bills. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And then Commissioner Cameron, did you have something?
I was going to follow up on the committee hearing tomorrow, but it sounds like you've got it covered with our lobbyists, so thank you.
Yes.
Real quick, do you know where NACO is on this?
I've talked to them about it. I don't know that they've taken a formal position. I think it's probably just a monitor and neutral position. I can tell you there's a lot of support for the bill. The League of Nebraska Municipalities, I believe Lash Chafin is going to testify in person for that. The PRBA, the Rechargeable Battery Association, submitted comments on it. The National Waste and Recycling Association, which is the group that's basically represents all of the solid waste industry, recycling business. They're in support of it. Call to Recycle, which is the national nonprofit that handles battery recycling. They're a 501c3. They don't take any kind of a lobbying position, but they are supportive of the intent of the bill as well. And then there are a number of others in the solid waste industry and the Nebraska Recycling Council and so on. And I can get you a full list of those. To Commissioner Friend, to your comments, I will provide a couple of summaries which will assist you in your review of that. I'll send that around so that all of the commissioners have that. It'll speed up the process of reading it.
Thank you. Very briefly, Commissioner Morgan.
Commissioner Friend, I'm not trying to be nice to you, but I do want to thank you for your reading that, and I know that's important. So I'll look forward to hearing from you after you've looked it all over too, because I respect that greatly. And thank you.
And
Thank
commissioners,
you.
please reach out to me if you have specific questions, because I can get you answers if I don't have them directly.
Sounds good. Thank you, Director
you.
Holm. We'll go to Section 5, Recognitions and Proclamations, starting with 5A, which is a recognition of the following county employee, Joseph Bedaviano, who worked for the Douglas County Sheriff's Office for 15 years. I'm not sure if the employee was here today. I think yes. And if so, let me take a motion and a second for the resolution.
So moved.
Motion by Morgan, second by Friend, and if you'd like to say a few words, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members of the board. We're very proud of Joe and his 15 years of dedicated service to the safety of the City-County Civic Center and the courthouse complex. I think I've said it before at this very podium, our entrance screening officers, our building security officers, they're the unsung heroes of public safety in this footprint, in this government footprint. Specifically, the ESOs, keep in mind that they either have a background in military law enforcement or a background in actual certified law enforcement. That is what meets their minimum criteria for their job. Really appreciate all of them, and especially Joe for his 15 years of service. We have a plaque that we have completed to give to Joe today, and thank you also for your recognition as well.
Definitely. Thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you for the people, citizens of Douglas County. It's been a pleasure working for you for these past 15 years. Caps off about 40 years in law enforcement for me. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Let me go to Commissioner Kavanaugh real quick, and then we'll vote on the resolution.
Joe, I just wanted to say real quick, thanks for having our back, literally.
Been my pleasure. Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you. And don't go too far, because we might take a quick picture with you, Joseph. So let's vote on the resolution.
Motion passes 6-0.
All right, we still got Jake here, so let's take a quick pic. All right, and for the next proclamation, I shall pass it to Commissioner Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to just read the resolution and recognize February as Black History Month. And it reads, whereas in 1776, people envisioned the United States as a new nation dedicated to the proposition stated in the Declaration of Independence that all men are created equal and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And whereas African suffering and enslavement were first brought involuntary to the shores of the United States as early as the 17th century, and whose ancestors subsequently faced the injustices of lynch mobs, segregation, and denial of the basis of fundamental rights of citizenship. And whereas in the face of injustices, people of goodwill of all races in the United States have distinguished themselves with a commitment to the noble ideas which the country was founded and fought courageously for the rights and freedom of African Americans and others. And whereas many African Americans lived, toiled, and died in obscurity, never achieving the recognition those individuals deserve, and yet paved the way for future generations to succeed. And whereas African Americans such as Maya Angelou, Arthur Ashe Jr., James Baldwin, Clara Brown, Ralph Bunche, Shirley Chisholm, Frederick Douglass, W.E.B. Du Bois, Ralph Ellison, Medgar Evers, Alex Haley, Mahalia Jackson, Stephanie Tubbs Jones, B.B. King, Martin Luther King Jr., Coretta Scott King, Thurgood Marshall, Constance Baker Motley, Rosa Parks, Walter Payton, Jackie Robinson, Aaron Shirley, Sojourner Truth, Harriet Tubman, Booker T. Washington, the Greensboro Four, the Tuskegee Airmen, Prince Rogers Nelson, Reese Taylor, Fred Shuttlesworth, Duke Ellington, Langston Hughes, Muhammad Ali, Ella Fitzgerald, Mamie Till, and Edith Savage Jennings, among with many others who worked against racism to achieve success and to make significant contributions to the economic, educational, political, artistic, athletic, literary, scientific, and technological advancement of the United States. And whereas the contributions of African Americans from all walks of life throughout the history of the United States reflects the greatness of the United States. And whereas the February birthdays of Abraham Lincoln, Frederick Douglass, inspired by the creation of Negro History Week through the efforts of author Dr. Carter G. Woodson, considered to be the father of Black History Month, eventually to become Black African American History Month, a month specifically set aside to recognize the heritage and achievements of Black people in the United States. And whereas Black History Month of 2025 theme is African Americans and labor, focusing on the various and profound ways that work and working of all kinds, free and unfree, skilled and unskilled, vocational and voluntary, intersect with the collective experience of Black people. Now, therefore be it resolved by this Board of County Commissioners of Douglas County that this board does hereby proclaim February to be Black History Month and encourages every resident to annually recognize the importance of February as an opportunity to reflect on our complex history while remaining hopeful and confident about the paths ahead and commemorating the tremendous contributions of African Americans to American history. And I move to approve.
Second. Motion by Rogers, second by Morgan. Discussion and vote.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you, Commissioner Rogers, for that. We'll go into our committees, starting with Finance with budget report as presented. We also have under Human Resources the weekly personnel report from Civil Service as presented. We do have a need for executive session today for the purposes of litigation, legal advice, labor negotiation, and security. I'll take a motion in a second for that. So moved. Motion by Morgan, second by Rogers. Please vote. While we're voting, I want to remind the public that we are off next week for President's Day, and we'll be returning February 25th. I'm going to repeat it a second time here in 1 second, right after the vote's done, unless that affects your vote. It's for litigation, legal advice, labor negotiation, and security.
Motion passes 6-0.
The board should now go into executive session for the purposes of litigation, legal advice, labor negotiation, and security.
Motion to adjourn by Borgeson, second by Rogers, at 11:49 a.m. The motion passes 4-0. Commissioners Kavanaugh, Fahey, and Morgan are absent.